There are so many problems with this cultural artifact that is self-care, and many of them are already out and about in the world, so I'm only going to share the thing that irritates me the most and that I just don't see voiced as much. I'm Liz Scarf. Welcome to Collaborative Learning for Cultural Repair. I'm never get it right. Where I share some thoughts I've been having on whatever interests me in the moment about cultural repair, and also invite you to share your thoughts here too. Now, like and subscribe if you want to hear more. So, self-care, what a shit show. So many problems, all culturally relevant. First, I guess, is to congratulate neoliberal capitalism on again appropriating the work of amazing social change activists and turning something really wholesome into something really gross. Like, capitalism's so good at this. So the term self-care had its origins in the 1950s in psychiatry, asking people to think about what the individual could do themselves to support their own mental health, as opposed to what a doctor does. So great, it's a really great idea. What brought it into cultural prominence, though, not long after, is the way the Black Panther movement framed self-care as a form of resistance against racialized oppression and a basic requirement to actually sustain activism. Because if you've ever spent any time, or it's been your life experience right around activism, the martyring of self in activism is a massive issue, right? Activists not taking very good care of themselves. So yeah, big issue, still a big issue. These days, of course, self-care is also now a basic requirement to sustain neoliberal capitalism by optimizing your personal productivity, as well as a great way to sell stuff. And is it still essential to sustain activism? Of course. Is it still a form of resistance against systems that don't care about your well-being? Of course it is, right? But self-care is so amenable to the purposes of capital because care is essential for all life. So it's actually a really easy sell. But self-care capitalism style also, I think, leverages neoliberal values of individualism and the way that that is making us all increasingly socially inept and irritated by each other, right? So care becomes this very individualized issue. And our self-care becomes often things we're doing on our own. And neoliberalism in general, but neoliberal capitalism is also really good at hiding its social cost and good at displacing both causality and responsibility from the system to the individual. And so, like, hello self-care industrial complex, right? We all think the issues that we need to sort of self-care for are self-generated and that we have to take self-responsibility for them. It's a total, it's a big trick, I guess. So the other thing is self-care in this frame positions us as actuarial objects, right? That is, to be measured and optimized as resources for the generation of capital. And I know for me, I have been living in this for so long, I can barely conceptualize what the alternatives are. Like, trying to learn or remember that I'm not a problem to be fixed or optimized for performance it's like a worthy but paradoxical goal of self-care, actually. To remember that I'm a person, not a tool, and that myself and others we're not only interested in wealth and power, but also in connection and meaning and beauty and all these things, right? So the big issue that I have with this kind of mainstream conceptualization and the way self-care has been railroaded is that it has really narrowed our thinking about what care is. And then coupled with the commercialization of care more broadly and simultaneously the undervaluing of care work, I think our conceptualizations of care are really quite narrow and quite bleak. And one popular direction here that somewhat expands these conceptualizations of care are the notions of community care or collective care. But I'm not going to touch on those here. If you haven't come across it already, look it up. There's heaps of great thinking and practical ideas about these notions of collective care. But care itself as a concept, I'm totally fascinated by. It's one of my key research interests, and there are many ways in which care gets defined, and the definitions tend to include one if not two or all of the following sort of three aspects, right? The affective aspect, so the feelings, and morality, practical aspects, so the actual doing, and the socio-political aspects, because care is, of course, very political. Now, I like this definition by Jean Tronto and Berenice Fisher, that it includes all three, actually. They say that care is activity that includes everything that we do to maintain, continue, and repair our world so that we can live in it as well as possible. That world includes our bodies, ourselves, and our environment, all of which we seek to interweave in a complex, life-sustaining web. That's really nice. I like it. And that it actually contains all three of these different parts of the definition, right? But of course, I like to put a post-human lens on it. That is, let's make this applicable to the more than human world as well, so that the we in everything that we do includes the more than human world. So then care can be anything done by anyone, human or otherwise, that sustains or makes life livable. So I can't even really get my head around what that does to how I conceptualize care. Like, I'm still working on this. But let me read it again. This time though, imagine this is a tree, a statement by a tree, right? Care is an activity that includes everything that we do to maintain, continue, and repair our world so that we can live in it as well as possible. That world includes our bodies, ourselves, our environment, all of which we seek to interweave in a complex, life-sustaining web. Like, when I think about that statement as a statement that could belong to a tree, it's pretty wild, actually. When I look out my window and I imagine the trees out there doing things that can be defined as care, I can't help but have a little sort of affective response, right? The world just seems a slightly better place. Now, it's probably not their intention, but that's the really cool thing in this kind of definition of care. The act doesn't have to be intended to be felt by me as care for it to be felt by me as care, right? And then the more I take this idea out into the world, the more care I kind of start seeing it everywhere, being enacted by everything and everyone. And it's shifting something in me about this idea of self-care, so that I just don't quite understand the self bit anymore. Now, I don't actually have any grand statements or conclusions here. Sorry, it'd be really cool if I had like oh my God, here's a new self-care manifesto. I haven't got it yet. But it is an invitation to explore the question yourself, right, of what happens to your thinking about self-care when you experience the world as being made up of persons and things all enacting care. That maybe the whole world is organised by care, right? Yeah, that's the invitation. Let me know what you think in the comments and what happens for you when you see the world like that. Thanks for watching. Bye.